Hey man, what are you doing? Oh, Game Award nominations. Nice. Well, what do you think is gonna win? I'm pretty fond of Animal Well, so I'm pretty sad it didn't get nominated, but Elden Ring DLC was pretty high quality. I know it isn't a full. What's that? What's the deal? Oh, I didn't. Yeah, please. Whatever. I guess. You think they're gonna show a trailer in space? Feels like now we've pretty much gotten past the argument over the fact that video games can and should be considered as art. Now that the gaming industry is screaming from the rooftops how much money it's making with acquisitions and more ambitious titles, it's kind of made itself at home within the entertainment industry as a pillar on its own. With that, of course, comes the absolute privilege of being scrutinized under a critical eye and being rewarded for the achievements and advancements made each year. More specifically, award shows for film, TV, and music are a popular yearly tradition to give out such commendations. So, with gaming's rise to a pretty popular and normal pastime, it too has earned its fair share of award shows. Of these shows, without a doubt, the one that probably has the most eyes on it is the Game Awards, spearheaded by Jeff Keighley and his team. The show sports a bombastic venue with exciting reveals, speeches, and community votes that have generally garnered its consistent high viewing count to date. But past that, the show has struggled a lot since it began in 2014 to really define what it means to be a video game award show. That's an odd thing to think about if you stop for a moment. Struggling to be a video game award show. The answer is in the name. Give the awards to video games. But Jeff and his team's ambition is what has cemented this show as the Game Awards instead of any other show. Marketed sometimes as the biggest night in gaming, the logic of the Game Awards is generally as follows. Celebrate the past year of accomplishments, while also highlighting the future of gaming with exciting new reveals. It's a good concept for an industry that relies so heavily on looking at its past for sequels and inspiration, while also looking forward to its future with new IP and fresh ideas. The problem is that the Game Awards struggles to commit to both of these ideas, creating a show that can be predictable in terms of reveals and comedic in terms of how it shows off the year it's supposedly celebrating. There's a lot of shade thrown at many of the Game Awards decisions when it actually comes to being an award show for the industry it's found in. Let's begin at the start of the show, or rather before the show, with the pre-show. Every year, the Game Awards are advertised as a specific start time, but in reality, that's when the pre-show begins before the show begins for real on stage. But despite this being the pre-show, there's still all of the common tropes of the show. Trailers for future releases, which are notably smaller scale ones from indie studios, general advertising and promotions, and of course, awards. But these awards get little fanfare as instead of being announced on a stage for people to celebrate, they're listed almost like bullet points. Imagine getting nominated for a category that you work towards, like racing sim or sports, and getting sidestepped because a genre like adventure is considered more important. Instead, you're consolidated to, that's pretty cool, now look at this trailer. The weighing value when it comes to awards and genres doesn't really seem fair, and it isn't very clear why some are held so high above others. So hopefully those who are considered special enough at least get the time to celebrate their accomplishments, right? Well, 2023 was a fluke in that regard, with a laughable 30 seconds given to each award receiver to talk about 4 years of accomplishments. Think about that. 4 years of development hell, tears, and hard work in 30 seconds. This may have been done as a measure against some inarguably long speeches the previous year, but 30 seconds in an award show dominated by advertisements for future projects is disappointing, especially when this applies to all awards, including the actual Game of the Year title itself, and those advertisements get 5, 6, sometimes even like 7 minutes of runtime. The nominations for all awards can also be debatable at times. The indie category was recently thrust into controversy due to the nomination of Dave the Diver a previous year. Dave the Diver, which is an excellent experience, was developed under the supervision of the company Nexon, which by all means is not considered independent. This was disappointing when independent games are such an investment and risk for independent developers to undertake, and instead, a company fully capable of taking that risk financially is celebrated. The debut indie category was also introduced to show off fresh talent and faces in the field, but Cocoon took this award a previous year, which rubs me personally the wrong way. While Cocoon was developed by a new studio in the space, the game's development was spearheaded by an industry veteran who previously worked on both Limbo and Inside, which have received critical praise in the past. While we should celebrate the success and achievements of a studio formed by existing talent in the studio space, it's disappointing that the debut indie is made by a team which has already debuted in the industry before. And I don't mean for either of these claims to disregard the praise these games have received. They're fully justified and awesome experiences. There's just a weird gap in understanding who these awards are for, and the award show doesn't seem keen on defining it. Early access games sometimes show up with nominations or awards when they're both in early access and then also when they fully released later down the line, causing confusion for when they should be nominated and when they shouldn't. The awards themselves are kind of a confusing mess, and while I don't need to agree with every winner or nomination, I would like it to be clear why decisions were made regarding each award, and let the developers celebrate their hard work on stage. So if the actual awards section is a downplayed, confusing mess, where does that leave the rest of our award show? Well, the simple answer is marketing. As I stated earlier, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, I just think it struggles due to the wide variety of gamers that tune into this event. The Game Awards can kind of be distilled into a specific formula when it comes to its marketing. They open with the pre-show, which will almost always show announcements that cater to the smaller crowds. New indie games, MMO expansions, minor DLCs. This content isn't bad at all, but usually it's not going to turn the head of anyone who isn't looking for this specific content. Then comes the main show, which will open strong and then lead into CG trailer territory. While not a problem with the Game Awards specifically, its position as the biggest night in gaming lends it to showing off some of the most monotonous, samey advertisements every single year. You will see someone on an abandoned spacecraft. You will hear a main character heavily breathing before a jump scare. And you will see a Muppet, for whatever reason. The frustration with this monotony more comes in terms of editing and how much they let developers breathe around these announcements, which they don't, so it feels like someone's heartfelt thanks to their grandma was cut short just so we could see the game industry's innovations on horde zombie gameplay. And let's jump back to those Muppets too. The Game Awards also likes to employ these celebrity appearances and speeches, which are kind of unexpected and confusing when it comes to that Game Awards audience that I would expect. It's cool that they show up to show how large gaming has grown over the years, but it almost feels like an admittance of defeat when the show chooses to highlight famous faces from other industries instead of its own. This leads us to the answer to the master question. Who are the Game Awards for? It's for the sponsors. Open the show with the low-key announcements while no one's paying attention, still grabbing their food or whatever, since the awards are minor compared to the million-unit sellers. Bring out the celebrities so we can have as many people tuning in as possible so they can watch those weird TV ad blocks that run throughout the show. Limit the speech time for presenters so we can start and end right on the advertised time so audiences stay engaged. The Game Awards are engineered to drive as many viewers as possible, which unfortunately leads to the lack of focus on the actual subject they should be celebrating. A lot of this criticism usually falls on Jeff Keighley, specifically after the show wraps up, which I think is mostly fair. The guy's social presence exudes charisma, and he often is proud of what he has to show each year on his socials. But this also means he likely has a microscope on him at all times, so when he should probably address mass layoffs in the industry, he talks about the gaming smell-o-vision instead to maintain business partners and relationships. I'm sure every trailer he and his team approves to be shown at the award ceremony is something that he feels at least somewhat passionate about. But his tastes can be pretty clear when Kojima comes out to kiss him for the 14th presentation in a row. I don't agree with all of his decisions, but I don't think he has any malice in the decisions that he does make. And despite all of that, I still look forward to the Game Awards every year. I watched it with my friends last year, and when one walked through the door at our place, he was proud to present to us his very own bingo board to fill out while we enjoyed the show. The Game of the Year medley at the end of every show is always a special moment to me, and I wish they used the orchestra more, but my point is there's still fun to be found in a show like this. The show definitely struggles to highlight the video game industry and celebrating it in the most meaningful way possible, but it does lead to fun discussion regarding the experiences that we connected with the most over the past year. Because, realistically, that's the best part of being an art form. Enjoy the discussions that this media provides us and celebrate those who make it happen. Even if the Game Awards gets lost on the way to that message, I'm glad it's there to spark excitement and help us remember what's so great about these experiences in the first place.